This session we've got Tabitha, Miriam and Miranda all doing a presentation on using Moodle core activities to create engagement. And there might be some surprise presenters according to them. So thank you, ladies. We're all anticipating something wonderful. Thanks.
Thanks, Dom. So thanks everyone for coming along. Start with some introductions. So we have me, I'm Tabitha.
Miriam, hi.
And Miranda.
So we, between us, in case you haven't met us before, between us we have a range of expertise in different industries, public and private training environments, working with a Moodle partner. We've worked through primary schools through to tertiary, we've worked around the world. You name it, one of the three of us has probably done it. So we quite enjoy working together, and at one stage we were working together in Unitec Institute of Technology. It's a large polytech in New Zealand, and so today we're going to share some of the things that we've learned there, and along the way we'll share other things from our other experiences.
Oh, right, me, sorry.
So if you've been at a Moot before and seen Martin Digiyama's talk, you're likely to have heard about Martin's typical teacher progression. He has put it on Moodle Docs, so you can have a look there later as well if you want, but it's on the slide here. He describes the teacher's journey into developing and facilitating online courses. If you work in e-learning, you probably already know, have seen and experienced something typical similar to this progression, and we're all familiar with the teachers that get stuck at the first step, putting up their handouts, they put up their PowerPoints, readings, they might put up their assignment requirements, but they never really explore the power of the LMS.
Miriam?
Yeah, I'm getting there. I'm awake, I swear. Okay. So the majority of the teachers at Unitec are at step one, uploading their presentations, their readings, their handouts, and they're just uploaded to Moodle, usually in a list of files. However, a significant number of teachers are also providing a forum, but still not using it well. There are also a significant number who are using assignment submissions, often Turnitin, but collecting online assignments doesn't really mean that you have engaging assignment questions or that students are collaborating and co-constructing knowledge. Some teachers provide a glossary, either with or without entries, and either teacher created or sometimes collaborative, where the students have to contribute. There's not really easy to identify evidence of teachers who are progressing to stages 8 or to 10 of Martin's progression. We can find rare examples of each of the stages by hunting them down and talking to the tall poppies, who we know are striving to push themselves and provide for their students, but they're sort of few and far between. And this is an example of an actual course, one course. And yeah, so you can see just from glancing at it, the sort of stage of presentation and organisation that the teacher is at. There's a lot of resources, and you can't really see the icons from here, but there's not a lot of interactivity in this course.
Yeah, so what we also found was that even looking at courses that academic advisors put up, who are well versed in learning and teaching, and so but would not use the LMS really well. So the folders of files and some links and so on, but yeah, so there is collaboration in the courses they do, but it doesn't always mean that you need to look at your own practice, and you cannot rely solely on data you see. Can you go to the next one? Sorry.
Yep.
So I think I'm rambling. I don't know why. My coffee's not working yet. So in that same course, there was a lesson about lessons, and then a forum to introduce some questions for the teachers. And so even this course about blended learning only moved itself into stage 2, even though the content was really well designed. Yeah.
Yep. Sorry, was typing.
Right, so we can't just look at stats and ask how many files, how many forums, how many assignments. We can, and this is the stats, but we don't get the full picture from this. We get a vague idea on looking at the numbers, but we have to remember that you take it with a grain of salt. There is plenty of opportunity to use a resource in a different way. But if we have a quick look at the ones that I've highlighted, it's quite interesting to note that one of them is book. That's a phenomenon you'd find in Unitec. They have an unusually high number of books by design. It was heavily used across a program by instructional designers who worked in that program, and then this model was used as a template for course design in other programs. So that's why you see that high number there. You probably wouldn't see that elsewhere. But if you looked at the stats at your own institute, you might find something similar to this. The highest used ones there, we've got 9 that are highlighted. 3 of them are what Moodle refers to as activities, and 6 of them are what Moodle refers to as resources, as module types. So we would probably say that was fairly passive course design. The student's the consumer of content that's provided by the teacher. Given that the forum count includes the teacher's only news forum, that's automatically added to every new course. It's a default, which they haven't changed at Unitec. You can safely assume the forum numbers are inaccurate. Yeah, I'd like to see more choices too, Carrie. So I took a stab at showing what this looks like using just the raw data. We haven't altered it in any way. Resource modules versus activity modules in Moodle at Unitec, based on the terms that Moodle assigns those things. I would even question the assignment one. Calling an assignment an activity is a stretch, but anyway. And as I said before, we got to remember that labels and pages and other resource types might look like resources, but actually they're hiding some interactive external embedded objects. So this is just the raw data. Right. If I just take the most used activity types and put them in a graph here, Pareto chart, we see Turn It In assignment, which is a non-core. That's a plugin we've added. But I've combined questionnaire and feedback. Questionnaire was used in the past. Now feedback's in core. So just to give you an idea there. And remember that forum count includes news forums. So forums and assignments are really quite easy for teachers to set up. So it's not surprising that they're high up on the list. The benefits to teachers and students are known, talked about, and easily understood. Quizzes are a bit harder to set up, so it's quite interesting to see teachers making the effort to put quizzes in. It might be because the teachers see the benefit to themselves in terms of marking workload. That might account for the high number of quizzes. It'd be really interesting to see some stats from other institutes. So if you have any available or would like to share them with us, then please do feel free to do so. There's a forum in our course here on the iMoot. You could write in there, or if you're online at the moment and you wanted to write them in the chat, then yeah, it would be great to hear what other people are experiencing. So linking all of this together, we wanted to look at how our work contributes to Unitec's teaching and learning initiatives. So Unitec identified the key characteristics of what they call the living curriculum. And then from that, they developed a set of principles of teaching and learning. So conversation, curiosity, you see those down there. And then embedded in each of these is a theme around the concept of ARCO. Those in New Zealand will be familiar with ARCO, but for our global audience, it's a term used in New Zealand in Māori language. It's a term that refers to the teaching and learning relationship. The educator is also learning from the student, and educators' practices are informed by the latest research and both deliberate and reflective. It's kind of a complex catch-all, but anyway. Yeah, so from that, they've got their key themes there: inquiry, discipline, autonomy, and conversation. And so we wanted to link that to how we work with our teachers to support their development so that they can achieve Unitec's living curriculum. If you attended iMoot last year, you will have seen us talk about Moodle standards and templates. That was part of the work around this. And so this presentation sort of extends on what we were talking about last year.
Right, so this quote came up and led Tabitha to do a bit of research in the background because she was determined to find out where it came from. If you want, you can explain your research, but
it's probably not
entirely sure I completely understood your explanation. But she says, if interested, read blogs.
Yeah.
But it's true anyway, and it's something that most teachers will have, a quote that most teachers will have come across, and the basis of it is very true. It's, tell me, I will forget, show me, I will remember, involve me, I will understand. So, and other research shows that actually getting the students involved collaboratively and getting them to construct their learning and all that sort of stuff is what will make the learning stick. So we know, Tabitha, can you mute yourself?
Sorry.
We know from living curricular work where we need our teachers to be, so we now need to help our teachers get there. Unitec introduced a practice passport as a suite of professional development for staff. We developed workshops and online resources which focused on developing activities that would involve students rather than just feeding them information. And one of the things when we get to explaining the next bit is we are focusing on core Moodle activities because the Moodle out of the box, because these are available in any Moodle setup anywhere. They don't require extra plugins to be installed because some people just don't have the ability to install extra plugins, and the skills are transferable from one Moodle instance to another. And we're focusing on the fact that it's all about the pedagogy and not the fancy plugin. So it's inside the control of the teacher and it's not restricted by administrators in most cases, unless they've further reduced access. So, and the other thing is that neat authoring tools or other Web 2.0 stuff, it can be either expensive or not very accessible or just not allowed through JavaScript, blocking JavaScript or admin rights or firewalls and things like that. Miranda, you're muted.
Whoops. Sorry, I was already talking, completely oblivious. So one of the things we did was start with making a database of good examples of uses of activities. So we looked at our champions and what they were doing with the core activities, and we divided those types of activities into those types of items they used into activities, presentation, using of teacher tools, which is like completion tracking, activity reports, and so on. So we were really looking for representative examples of, let's say, extended use of Moodle to move towards one of those further steps of using Moodle. So we'll show you what that database looked like. So yeah, we gave them, so we really wanted to make it useful for the other teachers to understand how someone had used an activity and why, and how the students reacted to it, how it helped them, where it was hard, whether it was hard to set up, not too hard to set up. And so we really made it, gave it a lot of fields in the database so that people really had kind of an organized case study. Yeah. So here you see the fields we set up, and we also made it easily searchable. So we worked with a system of keywords and linked entries of terminology. So it was really easily searchable for teachers. So that was the first thing we did on our way to showing people what could be done. Yeah.
So one of the things we did, oh, Miranda, I'm getting echo.
Yeah.
Thanks. So one of the things we did is we made a Moodle collaboration workshop, and this workshop was one of our extended PD offerings at Unitech, and it was designed to be run face-to-face, but using Moodle to do activities. So, and it was designed for teachers. Initially, we ran this in our collaborative learning space, which had a lot of group configuration tables and big screens that people could work on together all around the room, a screen at the front of the room that the teacher could use and could push out to all the other screens and all that sort of stuff. So it was a really nice fancy space, really good for working collaboratively on technology things. But we've also run it in regular classrooms. We picked a general knowledge topic that most people at least have some prior knowledge of, rather than focusing on the teaching and technical skills, so that we could demonstrate good Moodle or online teaching practices to the teachers and give them a student experience. So the teachers were actually enrolled in this course as students. We set up a bunch of activities and topics, and we made them do the course as students, but all together and collaboratively. And so in topic 1, we started checking with what our learners already knew about the topic. Whiteboards or big sheets of paper to brainstorm words relating to the topic, group activities to define meaning for some of those words, and adding them to an online glossary. Hang on. No, okay. I was just checking something. And so we also gave them printed textbooks and permission to search online for more information if they wanted it. So to demonstrate that not all the learning activities or content will be online, and letting teachers know we expect them to blend online and face-to-face and still use printed materials where relevant. They then also got to rate and comment on other groups' entries in the glossary as a way of giving student-to-student feedback. So each group actually put glossary entries in based on their few minutes of research, which they seemed to enjoy.
So in this topic, this is an example of how you can set the scene. So we've got a page with a video on it, and it was around encouraging curiosity. One of our living curriculum key concepts there was curiosity. So we've put in a fun video, and we ask a few questions. In this case, it's actually using the feedback activity, but you can do this with lots of different activities. The questions were designed to lead the groups into a conversation about creative problem solving. We want to get the students engaged before asking them to do some more in-depth research. So there is a difference between questionnaire and feedback and how you display the results, but in this one we've said, look, we're going to use feedback so you can see it in action, and then the teacher, one of us, will show you the results on the big screen so that you can enable those discussions. We could have used one of the other tools, but we didn't. I don't know whether we do it this way again, but anyway, the responses and submissions can be anonymous, so even when the teacher shares, you can't tell who submitted each of the answers, so it's quite good for shy students. We could also use something like this to gain why have we got that written there? Could also be used to gain prior knowledge. Oh, the activity type. We should practice before we present.
Or maybe proofread.
Yeah, so this activity type feedback, we could have used this to do an exercise around gaining prior knowledge.
So another activity that we had was demonstrating a database. Databases are like glossaries, but on steroids, and they have so many options and the ability to change your templates and things like that. So we used a database here because it's such a complex activity. Teachers often don't use it because they don't understand how it can be used. And if you just build it how it is by adding in some fields and things, it looks ugly. So we built a database to show how it can be used, the different fields that can be used, and how it can be changed to make with the templates to make it more interesting, more visually pleasing, and just to try and demonstrate of how flexible it can be as an activity, because it's basically a build your own activity. We talked about examples used in other courses, such as reading logs, student-created shared spaces for pictures and websites, or databases that act as student workbooks, because database entries can be re-edited and commented on over the course. So that's what this activity was used to demonstrate, and we got the teachers who were our students during the session to fill in some entries in the database to see what they looked like and to comment on other people's entries.
Yes, and then we get to one of my favorite activities in Moodle, and people who know me know that I love this activity. So I got to make a branching lesson, and we actually used that to make it a fun activity where people learned something at the same time. So we, as you can see on the bottom, it says, on which planet would you like to live? And so we had a number of branching questions where they could choose what color of planet they would like to live on, whether they wanted it to be warm or cold. And so it made them end up on one planet. So, and they could start over again and give some different answers and end up on another planet. So people really, really liked that because it were easy, short questions. And in the meantime, they had learned, so if I choose, this characteristic, this one, and this one, that's the planet. So you've actually learned some 3 features of a planet while you were choosing simple questions. So we also at some point, I think, used this to put our students into groups so that the planets they ended up with first, they then came together in groups to do other activities. So you can do more with that. Yeah. So you can use lessons for lots of different things, to break up content from readings, use the buttons to let students delve deeper into other readings by choosing sub-themes. Yeah, it is quite clunky to use, but once you get used to it, it gets easier. And it's a question of planning well. That's what's always the case because it's not giving you the visual branching. But it's, so it can be used for a lot of things. So here we used it to do some individual learning and putting people into groups. Yeah.
The choice activity. It's so hard to pick your favorite activity, but choice is right up there as one of the really useful, easy, great starting point activities to start shifting people's behavior and participation online, getting them collaborating, getting them sharing their opinion. If you haven't used choice yet, start. I saw in the chat earlier, Carrie loves choices. So yeah, start playing with choices. So we did try using choice to divide into groups. We let the students decide what group they wanted to be in. We can do that either by their interest area, or we can do that after they've done an initial engagement activity, like if they've done the lesson and they're really excited about living close to the sun. Let them go learn about a planet that's close to the sun. So yeah, basically you design and configure the choices, the criteria in the choice to meet your needs. You can limit the numbers in groups. So you can evenly distribute the student body across the groups. You got 15 students, 3 groups of 5. You've got 50 students, 5 groups of 10, whatever you need. You can keep responses hidden until after they've chosen one of the options in choice. That means that they don't just choose the group that their friends went in. It's something you quite often will find. You can decide if your choice should be anonymous responses or show the names. If you're using choice to put people into groups, you don't want anonymous. You can restrict the answering period. You can say, hey, you need to answer this before Friday. You can show who hasn't responded yet, so the class can monitor for you and they'll tell their classmates to hurry up and reply. Other uses of choice that I want to point out here. Mock elections, exactly. Choice can be used as a really useful quick temperature gauge to get feedback on how class is going. You could use it every lesson, every week. You get quick, sharp responses. So you just say, hey, have we got the lesson at the right level? Have we got it at the right pace? So you're just asking a couple of questions or just one question, and you're asking it regularly. It's not too it's not too much, rather than filling a complete evaluation every class. I would advise that you do choice activities early on in a course if it's the first time your learners are doing an online, working in an online space. So it's got a low barrier to entry. It's not as confrontational as asking them to write in a forum as their first activity. They're just ticking a box. It's much safer for them. They may be giving an opinion, but they're not giving an in-depth opinion with an explanation. They're just making one choice. So you don't have that whole confrontation that forums will have as an initial activity. They don't feel that they're writing something personal that's going to expose anything about them to the rest of the class. So yeah, I find choices just generally not scary.
So the chat is one of these communication tools that is quite often overlooked and not used in a Moodle course. It can be an excellent platform, though, for students to have student-to-student conversations, or even for the teacher to schedule a time where they will be available. And it can be used for collaboration and problem solving. And if you squint, you might just be able to see the teacher notes, but it's text-based and it's synchronous real-time chat. So, and you can schedule a time when the teacher is going to be in there, and it will announce that time in the course calendar. Sort of like having open office hours, and have published chat times and things like that. So one of the things you might have noticed in the previous few screenshots is that we often put our teaching notes and tips on the screen for this particular workshop because we're teaching it to teachers and we want them to be able to see what we think about this activity and how it can be used. So because the participants keep access to the course after the workshop, they can go back and look at what we did, look at the explanations. We also encourage teachers to bring along another teacher from their team so they can work together after the workshop to change their own courses with a bit of peer support, not only relying on the academic advisor team.
So the forum activity in Moodle can support collaboration. And those of you who were in Miriam Fisher's, was that the right name, presentation this morning on Moodle for collaboration. So it's one of those things where you can have a focused forum to really discuss a collaborative task. So the forum isn't just to discuss how the project is going to go and how you're going to divvy up the work, but if the task that you plan around that forum, the task that needs to come out of the collaborative group at the end of the time of the assignment, they will converse in a very targeted way, and the forum is very useful also for if students can't be online at the same time to discuss it in the chat, so they can do it asynchronously. Because that's certainly with adult students, more mature students might have other things to do at that point when the chat is on, so they might discuss their work asynchronously. And it's also useful for conversations that just need to span the life of a project, documenting all discussions and seeing what your end results are, and then have a record of how we, as a group, you came to certain decisions about your task.
Wikis. So we love the idea of wikis, but they have their limits. Moodle wiki pages can't be worked on concurrently, so that takes quite a bit of management and planning on how you're going to use it in a classroom or over time. We discovered one particular limitation of a wiki is it doesn't copy well. We have done quite a lot of rework on a rather large course that used wikis extensively and needed to be duplicated every 4 weeks for new cohorts. One that on duplication each time the wikis were coming up empty because the content isn't included it sort of makes sense that the content is included, but it meant that the course design was wrong. We were brought in to try and find another way to do it, but we found wikis were really, really hard.
It would be nice if you could specify some base content that belonged to the wiki.
Yeah. But anyway, if you're not using it in a situation where everybody needs to write in it at the same time and you're building a resource slowly over a term, wikis can be good. But yeah, they do take some thought, and they it might be better to use a different activity if you plan on using it in a large course. Yeah, I feel like I'm bagging wikis a lot. But yeah, so we did try it out. It did allow us to create resources where the students were creating the content and they were working in groups. It did work well in the classroom when we explained to them that one person edits at a time, or you pick pages and edit them across your team over the hour or whatever you've got. It does allow you to do a group wiki, so each group can work in their own space, but they can see what the other groups are doing. It's quite good for project work like that, where each group is working on their own project with their own project goals, but they can see what other project teams are doing. So because you can use visible groups in wikis, you can then learn from each other. So there are benefits to wikis, but yeah, just plan well.
Let's move along, shall we?
Move along.
One of the things that I was quite excited about when it came out was completion tracking. Finally, the ability for students to see where they're up to and teachers to see where the students are up to in a nice, easy, as you can see from the screenshot where we've carefully removed the student names. And it means a lot of students respond really well to this. They become more engaged when they feel like they're in control. They can see themselves completing things, and there's a lot of autonomy. The power is in the students' hands to track their own progress, and so they have a sense of control. The teacher can easily and quickly get statistics on usage. They can either choose the most relevant items, or they can see all items that are being tracked in the whole course, from activities and resources on the report.
Yeah, so the large course that Tabitha was just talking about when she talked about the wikis, there was a really good example of how the completion records can be incredibly useful for teachers. So when we came in to rework that course, we found that the facilitator, so the course is with 3 big modules with a significant number of tasks, all to be completed in forums, wikis, upload assignments. There's an enormous class size. There's very little time that the teacher actually sees the student. So we found that the facilitators had these enormous Excel sheets where they were trying to track whether students had done something, for example, contribute to a forum and commented on to, the typical things that tend to be in forums if people want to get students to do something. So all these things we saw in these enormous Excel sheets. They were just looking at what the students did online and then putting text in. And they were incredibly grateful to us when we showed them the completion tracking, and so set up each activity in such a way that the exact requirements so that the exact requirements would be filling up the completion report. So with forums, you can really choose, like, one post 2 replies or things like that. So we could do that quite specifically. And also the students had a lot more visibility on their progress, so they can quickly see where they're up to, because these modules are really enormous, some of them. It's in a very big amount of content in activities. So they could easily return to their studies, because all of those students were not full-time students, but working as well. And it was also easy for them to see, like, hey, there's not a tick there for some reason, and immediately contact the teacher. I did that activity. What did I do wrong? So that it wasn't like quite a late reaction that they got from a teacher, like, hey, you missed a few activities. So they could look at things together and see what went wrong in the completion, that maybe they hadn't completely understood what they needed to do. So the completion tracking worked really well to let the teacher and the student work together very well and make the teacher's job way easier.
So, Miranda?
Yeah. So I'm sorry.
That's all right. So we don't always see feedback being used in courses on Moodle. But when we do see it, it's often at the very end of the course. So although the teachers might be gauging their students each week in the face-to-face sessions, it can be quite useful to collect written and well thought out, considered feedback. So asking students to regularly think about what feedback they would give. And it doesn't always have to be a really big, sort of thoughtful, deep, meaningful lot of feedback. Sometimes really brief feedback. So the things that Miranda and I use at our other work is asking just simple guiding questions like, what's one thing that worked for you and what's one thing that hindered you?
As we work through our face-to-face workshop with our teachers who are the learners in our workshops, and as they completed the activities, we stopped and asked the participants how they found those activities. Were they easy? Were they hard? Were they well supported? They're useful. And we tried to give examples that they get them to think of examples of how they might use these things in their own situations in the courses that they teach, so that they could try a similar activity in their own courses. We want to encourage discussion about their own teaching, sharing of ideas with their peers, sharing the challenges they might face, and discussing those with their peers. We try really hard, really hard to not get into technical discussions about how you set up an activity at this stage, because it's not as useful a conversation about their teaching practice. We want them to be continuing to talk about teaching and learning. We refer them to our guide to Moodle. We do create resources that provide them technical support. We've also got Moodle docs right there, and they've got videos and things to help them, but we're trying to keep those conversations out of this particular workshop. There are other workshops where they can learn the technical stuff. We do try to include lots of evaluation, lots of feedback, and we tried to demonstrate how you can use the feedback module so that they could try that out in their own courses. The feedback from these sessions has been very positive every time we run this course. Many teachers don't realise the various activities could be used in such a way. They've never even looked at a lot of the activities on Moodle, and a lot of them go away with new ideas that they can transfer to their own classrooms and their own online spaces. But
yeah, so as you all probably know, the design is the most important thing, no matter which activities you use. So the thinking about the student needs, how you want to deliver your course, and how to best meet those needs is what you need to think about first before you start choosing activities on Moodle or any activities. So they need to be designed well. So you can put all those amazing activities and interactive tools in your course, but if they don't really address the learning objectives that you have, and it looks crowded and confusing and uninspiring as the graphic design or the layout of your course, the students may still struggle to engage, no matter how good you're using those activities, if they don't fit into the total picture, or you set them up in a bit of a confusing way. Navigation of the course is bad, then it's still hard for them. So design first, thinking about everything, and then decide which technology you're going to use. Even if the basic thing is I'm going to use Moodle, then afterwards, which course, which element is going to be which activity. Yes, we refer to Joyce's presentation on design as well. It's really choosing activity for the right purpose is still hard, even if you can use all those activities into depth, have all the technical abilities. I think that's about it from us, isn't it?
So,
Yep.
thanks everyone. We really
Yeah,
hope you can take something useful away from this presentation. We'd love to hear any questions you might. We did have one question asked privately, but we'll just, wait till the recording stopped and then answer it. But is there any questions that anyone wants to ask?
One and a half hours?
Yeah, we try to get 90 minutes. Yeah. Sometimes we get 2 hours, but we often will get 90 minutes. It would be nice to have a whole day.
Oh, God.
Per week for a whole year. Oh dear.
Yeah, we really have to push people through to get it through it in 90 minutes. We're glad you're having a great conversation, but let's move on.
Yeah. And the feedback reflects that. The feedback says there's too much in this. We're a little bit overwhelmed.
Yeah, they would like more time.
We need more time. Yeah.
Yeah, please stop learning now. That's right.
There's actually a Unitech person in the audience. Am I allowed to point them out?
Unitech person, please identify yourself.
Maureen's been working her way through all those stages, whether she knows it or not. And earlier she made a comment about things that were enabled and disabled on the system. So Maureen's been exploring completion tracking and is quite interested in badges and trying to make sure that you're getting the most out of the system.
Yeah. Thank you, Ian.
So we are planning on running this workshop for others. We might. Are we allowed to plug Moodle New Zealand?
Yes, go for it.
Yeah, yay! So Moodle in New Zealand is coming up in October. So we'll be putting in a proposal to run a workshop. And it'll be around these sorts of things, giving people the experience of being a student and helping them to look at these activities. In Whangarei, yes, at NorthTech. So as part of preparing for that, Maria, Miranda and I will be looking at where we can post tips and where we can put our workshop material. So it will be public. Yes. So Carrie asked if she could have a copy of the workshop. So we'll probably put it up there. At the moment, it's obviously at Unitech.
Yeah, we might have to sort of rebuild it from scratch because I think we can make heaps of improvements.
Yeah.
So any suggestions for a new topic outside of planets?
No, space. Space.
We were really deliberate in that. We really didn't want to talk to create a workshop, another workshop that talks about what it means to do blended learning, what it means to. We really wanted to give our participants, our teachers, the experience of being a student, learning a curriculum area and applying a practice. So
it was really hard. I remember when we started brainstorming this, to not fall into the trap. Let's make all these activities about teaching and learning. And it became one big tangle of no fun stuff to do.
It'd be great to hear if anyone else has done this, taken this approach.
Yes, we removed the edu jargon, Ian.
So, Carrie, it would be great if we could have a bit more of a conversation about that. We've only got a few minutes now, but we can talk to you in the forum or offline. Yep. Thank you.
All right. I would like to get my microphone down again.
Thanks, Joyce.
Thank you for that, ladies. I think this discussion could go on for a very long time, but the recording will run out eventually. And I know there's secret Moodle business going on that mustn't be recorded, so I'll let you carry on that as well. But thank you very much for being part of iMoot 2016. It sounds like you've got a lot of followers here and that you guys should take your act on the road, I reckon.
Thank you.
Do a bit of stand-up. Okay, thank you very much. Bye.
Thank you, Dom.